I'm Dr. George Ampat. I work as an orthopedic consultant in Liverpool. I'm also part of the team that leads the musculoskeletal special interest group of the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine. This group is open to all healthcare professionals who believe in the principles of lifestyle medicine for the treatment of musculoskeletal pain and disorders. We meet online once a month on the third Thursday. We also set up a Facebook group. The Facebook group is called LM for MSK Pain. If you are a musculoskeletal practitioner, please consider joining our group. That is LM for MSK Pain. I'm very grateful to the rest of the team who helped me run the special interest group, and they are Mr. Rajiv Vajekal, Mr. James Smith, and Dr. Deepak Ravindran. Our second online meeting was on 17th August 2023, and we discussed two short papers. Both the papers were from the United Kingdom and focused on opioid prescription. The first paper was from the London School of Economics, published in 2021 in eClinical Medicine. The title of the paper was Global Consumption of Prescription Opioid Analgesics between 2009 to 2019, a country-level observational study. The second paper was from the Centre of Evidence-Based Medicine in Oxford. The title of that paper was, Is England Facing an Opioid Epidemic? Coming back to the first paper from the London School of Economics. They looked at prescription opioid analgesic consumption in 76 countries based on the information available from an independent database called IQVIA. The methods as described by them are prescription opioid analgesic consumption was estimated for 76 countries between 2009 and 2019 using IQVIA MIDAS data. We reported country-level consumption trends in morphine milligram equivalents, assessed differences in consumption between high-income countries, upper middle-income countries, and lower middle-income countries, and identified country-level socioeconomic drivers of consumption using fixed effects panel regression models. They quantified all opioids to morphine milligram equivalents. According to this conversion, 200 milligrams of codeine is equal to 30 milligrams of morphine, or 150 milligrams of tramadol is equal to 30 milligrams of morphine. The authors say that prior to the current study, data about opioid prescriptions were only obtained from the International Narcotics Control Board, the database mainly, and also from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development and the European Monitoring Center for Drugs and Drug Addiction. The International Narcotics Control Board is an independent quasi-judicial monitoring body for the implementation of the United Nations International Drug Control Convention. The authors of the paper say that the International Narcotics Control Board data assigned the UK a global ranking of 19 for the total average consumption of narcotic drugs in defined daily dose for statistical purposes per million inhabitants per day from 2017 to 2019. However, this estimated total for the UK did not include codeine, tramadol, buprenorphine, and tapentadol. In 2019, these opioids accounted for 53% of the total morphine milligram equivalent opioid consumption in the UK. Codeine was 32%, tramadol 12%, buprenorphine for analgesic use 7%, and tapentadol 2%. Coming back to the previous table, we can see the opioids that were excluded for the previous calculations. The authors included another database to document all the opiates. They use the independent database called IQVIA. The IQVIA collects data from all manufacturers directly and are thus able to provide more real data on prescription opiates. The findings of this study was interesting. Let me quote from the paper. The global opioid consumption rate declined by 30% from 216.3 to 151 MME morphine milligram equivalents per 1,000 inhabitants per day between 2009 and 2019. The reduction in global consumption was primarily driven by decreased opioid consumption in the US, Germany. In 2009, Germany had the highest consumption rate, 2,649 MME per 1,000 inhabitants per day, followed by the US, 2,119, and Canada, 1,645. The consumption rate declined by 58.3% in Germany, 48.0% in the US, and 36.8% in Canada from 2009 to 2019. Unfortunately, in UK, we have not driven this forward, and that is why we are now the top of the ladder. Let me quote from the paper. In 2019, these three countries, that is US, Germany and Canada, were still among those with the highest consumption rates in the world. But the UK had the highest rate. However, there was heterogeneity in the consumption rate among high-income countries, even between the group of 7 G7 countries, such as Japan 109, Italy 360, and France 926. Let us view that on the graph. The UK consumption in 2019 seems to be 1,300 MME morphine milligram equivalents per 1,000 inhabitants per day for the graph. Let us look at the few other G7 countries. Italy is 360 and Japan is 109. It seems we have to copy more than the Mediterranean diet from Italy and the Ikigai from Japan. The second paper we looked at was published in the British Pain Society journal this year. This paper was from Oxford Group and potentially gives the answers to the questions raised in the previous paper. For instance, though the previous paper said that UK had the highest consumption of opiates, we are not seeing the high death rates from prescription opioid toxicity seen in the US. Let me quote from this second paper. The widespread prescribing of opioids in the US led to a death rate of 20.7 per 100,000 people in 2020. In England, the opioid death rate has been substantially lower at 4 per 100,000 people in 2020. Yet the prescribing of high-dose and long-acting opioids increased by 457% from 1998 to 2018. Continuing to quote from this paper, the differences in death rates may be driven by the contrasting healthcare systems. The UK's National Health Service provides universal access to healthcare and has a centralized model of primary care services whereby patients must register with a single general practice. In the US, the physician network is decentralized, enabling patients to doctor shop to collect multiple opioid prescriptions. We should also not underestimate the power of Big Pharma and their advertising campaigns. As quoting from the paper, furthermore, the US has direct-to-consumer marketing of pharmaceuticals, which increases demand and knowledge of opioids as a quick fix for all pain conditions. Again from the same paper, although the opioid death rate is lower in England than in the US, England is still experiencing higher than expected rates of mortality and morbidity from opioids. Opioid-related hospitalizations increased by 49% from 2008 to 2018. And the number of people receiving the treatment for prescription and over-the-counter drug misuse also increased between 2009 and 2016. The final conclusion is very telling. Clinical guidelines for the management of chronic pain were published by the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence in April 2021, which advise against the use of opioids. These guidelines were the first to recognize chronic primary pain as a condition in its own right. However, since the introduction of the guidelines, 47% of the people with chronic pain still report the use of opioids. One of the drivers of prescribing opioids for chronic pain is that the preferred treatments are non-pharmacological interventions, including exercise and cognitive behavior therapy, which are difficult to ensure engagement and harder to access for people in deprived areas in England. This again highlights the health inequalities in our country, and it is crucial that we address that. Importantly, the paper emphasizes the importance of non-pharmacological interventions, and that is where we from the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine have a significant role to play. The British Society of Lifestyle Medicine is organizing its annual conference in Manchester between 21 to 23 September 2023. The details of the conference and how to register are provided on the BSLM website. The conference is very educational, and I sincerely hope that each one of you would be able to attend. Thank you so much.